Good day. How you doing? This is one of my favorite lectures today. We're going to start talking about center of mass, and which is also related to center of volume, center of weight, center of area, center of gravity. A lot of centered discussion today is going to be getting started. And I love this lecture because we get to have one of my favorite examples, which involves George Bush II and the Donald, the great Trump, the gift that keeps on giving. It's kind of neat when you can use those two characters to explain a concept. All right, so to get into center of mass, we need to understand how a weighted average works. And historically, we found students coming in don't really understand that. And so the following example that we're going to do can help with that. Now, we're going to be talking about Trump and George Bush. Now, I need to give you a little background probably on George Bush. Years ago, this wasn't necessary, but when you go to think about it, so for those coming to UMB now, you're around 19 years of age. You've had 4 years of Trump, so that would take you back to age 15. Then you had 8 years of Obama. That would take you back to age 7. And most kids at age 7, when you would have had Bush 2 leaving office, probably weren't that politically engaged. And if you went back to when he came into office, you weren't even conceived yet. So you probably don't have a lot of memories from that time. So let me bring you up to speed a little bit on the great George Bush II. Now, let me just say, by all accounts and my own observations, he seems to be a very decent man. If you had him for a neighbor, you would be thrilled. Very affable guy, probably fun to hang out with, great to enjoy with over a beer. Though he doesn't drink, he used to. He was smart enough to get off of that. From what I understand, he was in danger of being an alcoholic, so he gave that up, so good for him. But by all accounts, a very nice guy. At the same time, by all accounts, not the sharpest tool in the shed, okay? So a few comments by him might be appropriate to kind of get the idea. So I've assembled a few quotes from President George Bush II here. Quote, "One of the great things about books is sometimes there are some fantastic pictures." So this is a president that prefers children's picture books, okay? Let's just put that into perspective. All right. Again, a low voter turnout is an indication of fewer people going to the polls, unquote. I mean, this guy studied probably 3 weeks to figure that out, okay? That's good for him. He figured it out. Quote, it has come to my attention that air pollution is polluting the air. Brilliant. Another one. I know the human being and the fish can coexist peacefully. Wow. On the more troubling side, perhaps. Quote, for every fatal shooting, there are about 3 non-fatal shootings. Folks, this is unacceptable in America. You know, George, you're right. What we need to do is have little children take their guns to school in AR-15s, and they need to be taking target practice every day so that 3 out of 4 shootings will be fatal, if not 4 out of 4. Yes, that would be great progress in America, Mr. President. Interestingly, I will note that George Bush is the first president that had an MBA. And probably, as a person who's very active in business, I think he knew the least about business, in all honesty. Here's a quote from him with some business tie-ins. Quote, it's clearly a budget. It's got a lot of numbers in it. Another quote, they want the federal government controlling Social Security like it's some kind of federal program. For my students here who are Canadians, Social Security is a federal program, just like our Canadian pension program we have here, CPP. Wow. During his re-election campaign, you work 3 jobs? Wow, that's uniquely American, isn't it? I mean, that is fantastic you're doing that. let me just say personally, when a person has to work 3 jobs to put food on the table, I think that's really sad that they have to do that. You'd like to see people being able to make it on less effort than that. That they can get 3 jobs, more power to them. I'm not judging them, but that's not a great place for the economy to be. Quote, I'll be long gone before some smart person ever figures out what happened inside this Oval Office. When the president doesn't know what's going on in the Oval Office, that's really scary. What I believe was at a West Point graduation. Quote, to those of you receiving honors, awards, and distinctions, I say well done. And to the C students, I say you too can be the President of the United States. Well said. One of the more scary things that he ever said, though I do appreciate his candor and honesty. I don't have the foggiest idea about what I think about international foreign policy. Never has a more intelligent statement been said by somebody who has their finger on the nuclear arms. Being sarcastic here, folks. Another quote. Quote, our enemies are innovative and resourceful, and so are we. They never stop thinking about new ways to harm our country and our people. And neither do we. With regard to war policy, or using the military. Quote, when I take action, I'm not going to fire a $2 million missile at a $10 tent and hit a camel in the butt. I'm going to be decisive. Great decision. Another one, quote, the ambassador and the general were briefing me on the vast majority of Iraqis want to live in a peaceful, free world. I want you to know I'm going to find these people and we will bring them to justice. George Bush there, folks. And finally, from a trip he made to Canada, quote, I frankly felt like the reception we received on the way in from the airport was very warm and hospitable. Us Canadians are that way. Continuing, quote, and I want to thank the Canadian people who came out to wave with all 5 fingers, not just the middle one, for their hospitality. That's George Bush, folks. Okay, so you know who George Bush is. If I have to tell you who Donald Trump is, you are not alive. All right? So I'm not going to go there. So I want you to picture a 5th grade class. And this kind of is along the lines of, so you think you're smarter than a 5th grader. I think that was a show a few years back. All right? So you got George and the Donald are doing a photo op as George is back when Trump was like in 2015 as he's preparing, he's running for president, and George didn't know enough to hate him yet. And so they go to this school and they're doing the photo op, and the teacher's going to have this little exam, and they're being good sports, and so they participate in it. All right, so they go and do this little exam. The teacher gives their scores, and so what we have here is one of the students was Joe. Joe's a good Joe. Yeah, there you go. He got an 85. Not bad. This is out of 100. Trump. He did all right. He got a 90. And then there was Jill. Jill was exceptional. She got a 96. Good for her. And Kim. Oh, Kim did very well as well. She got an 80. 80%'s an A-, right? And then there's George. Poor George. But George actually had an exceptional testing day. He did very well. He got a 40. And so the teacher then said, now, class, let's figure out what's the average of these people. And as I'm sure you would be able to do, teacher went to the board and said average equals. And so she wrote 85 plus 90 plus 96 plus 80 plus 40, and then divided that by 5. And then got a calculator out, because I know I can't do that in my head too easy. worked out to 78.2. So he said, class, the average is 78.2. And she said, now let's study what this really means here, because we just applied an equation. There's some meaning to it. And so she rewrote the equation as the following. So she goes 85 1/5 plus 90 1/5 plus 96, there for Jill, she did so well, 1/5, plus 80 1/5, and then here comes George, 40 1/5, which of course is still equal to 78.2. And so the teacher said, now I want you to understand what's happening here. So notice there were 5 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you each counted equally. 1 for Joe, 1 for Trump, 1 for Jill, 1 for Kim, 1 for George. And she's saying this, George goes, wait a second. No way. Not happening. I'm the Trump. I'm the Donald. Come on. Look at Joe here. I mean, a nice kid. Maybe he's going to amount to something someday, but I'm at least 4 times more important, more worthwhile than this guy. I'm 4 times with this guy. I'm 4 times all of them. George, on a good day, I'm 100 times better than him. Come on. This is Donald Trump here. I'm smarter than everybody. I'm the most popular I had the most popular TV show ever. I'm a worldwide celebrity. Everybody loves me. They tell me that all the time. Come on. I'm the Trump. I am the greatest real estate developer since the Romans. They only wish they could build things like I do. Look, I have the best hotels in the world. I am so important. I have been the subject of 8 NIH studies on narcissism and psychoses. I am special. Come on. When I become president, 5 million will come to see my inauguration. CNN, they'll say only 100,000 came. And they'll claim to have counted. But look, I own the world's greatest hotels. Yeah, they went out of business, but because they went out of business, I learned to count really, really fast, so I'll know. I'm the Trump. I am 4 times everybody else, and on a good day, 100 times more than George. I mean, come on here. And the teacher being very mature, said, well, class, let's learn from that. Let's take a look at this. Donald Trump says that he is the equivalent of 4 of you. And Joe is a full person, and Jill's a full person, and Kim's a full person. And we will be very nice to George today and say he's a full person. So there. So what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 4 is 8. So let's now do a weighted average where Trump is 4 times more important than everybody else, because he has an ego that surely is 4 times bigger than everybody else. All right, so let's do that. And so now we're going to have a weighted average. Now this one was weighted, but everything was weighted equally, so we don't go mentioning the weighting all the time. So we'll go weighted average. So we have 85, we now have 8 parts, and Joe is a humble character, gets 1/8. Trump gets 4/8, 4 times the ego, and Jill gets 1/8, she's humble. Kim is humble, 80 and 1/8. And then George, 40, he's just grateful that he's at least 1/8. All right? So, ego, humble, grateful. We get out the calculator and we compute this, and this works out to 82.6. And the number moved up because 90 got more weight and it was above 78. It brought the average up a little bit. So we have a weighted average. This got more weight than those. Now, when we do this, so notice what we had here. This 1, the 4, the 1, the 1, the 1, those are portions. This is the total number of parts. So if you sum all the portions, you get total number of portions, or parts, as I said. All right? 1/8 plus 4/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 equals 1. If you go up here, a fifth, a fifth, a fifth, a fifth, a fifth, equals 1. In any average, you take the things you're averaging, those go here, and then this says basically what portion they count for. 1/8, a half, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. or a fifth, 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 fifth. All right? So that's what makes a weighted average, is that not all of them get the same weight, but at the end of the day, if you can add them all up, the eighths or the fifths, they sum up to 1. That is what I needed you to see today. All right? And so we have a basic equation where we can say, wait, if we bring this, notice this eighth is in the denominator. So we have weighted average times total portions equals the sum of the scores. Oops. These are all the things we're averaging times each individual portion. So this is equal to that. And if we divide the portions over through here, we get the weighted average. All right? This is the equation we're going to use to figure out center of mass. And some things, some parts, are going to count more than some other parts. They'll get a bigger portion. Just like Trump has a bigger ego, some things will get a bigger portion. Why would they get a bigger portion? So try to picture objects. Here's one object. My pen's a second object. The density of this eraser is different than the density of that pen. So this thing's weight in a given amount of volume or space will be different than how this pen builds up space, builds up mass or weight in a given volume or space. Things that have more mass, more density, will get more count than something else. That's basically the idea we're heading for. We will get into that in our next lecture. See you then. Bye now.